सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Namaskaram to all. Hari Om. So today we have the next session in the Bharatiya Darshana Shastravali series. Our Sanatana Dharma is replete with Vedic karmas, right from birth to death. You have karmas starting right from the time you are in the womb of the mother till the time you depart the world. A natural question might arise in many of our minds. What is the relevance of these Vedic karmas and Vedic rituals in today's world, in the modern day world? Are they still relevant? So this is the topic for the day, the relevance of Vedic rituals and Vedic karmas for today in the light of the darshana of Mimamsa, also known as the Purva Mimamsa. To take us through this session, we have with us a very erudite speaker, Dr. Gopala Desikan. Gopalan sir, welcome to the session today. Dr. Gopala Desikan is the Assistant Professor, School of Philosophy, Psychology and Scientific Heritage at the Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth. He is an Acharya in Mimamsa and Nyaya and also a doctorate in Navya Nyaya. He has been honored with several awards, including the Vidwat Pravara by the Sharada Peetham Sringeri, Vidwan Mani by Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham. He attends the traditional Vakyartha Sadas at many places. Gopala Desikan sir, welcome to the session today. I now give you the stage for you to take ahead with us through the relevance of Vedic rituals. Namaskaram.
Thank you, sir. Yatkripalesha matrena purushartha chatushtayam prapyate tamam vande govindam bhaktavatshalam. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram to everyone. So today I am going to speak about the topic, the relevance of Vedic karma in today's world in Mimamsa perspective. This is the question lagging in everyone's mind, that what is the relevance of Vedic karma in modern world. So we have tried to analyze the relevance of this karma through the Mimamsa philosophy, which actually describes about the logic behind this karma. So I had a presentation which I will share with everyone. So the question directly enter into the subject: is Vedic karma relevant in today's world? Yes, if you take the meaning of the word relevant, I say whether it is appropriate to do Vedic karma at this point of time. So as a Mimamsaka, the answer is obviously yes. So, in the point of Mimamsaka, we put this in this perspective, is why it is not relevant. So, we try to answer the question, why it is not relevant. So, we came up with 3 answers, possible answers. If there are many other answers, we can discuss later. So the first one, so most of the time we hear this thing, no scientific reason or contradictory to the reason. So in many karmas, if you ask why we have to do this, so there is no clear reason we get, clear answer we get, or some answers which they give are almost contradictory in nature. Maybe for example, they say you should not give silver during the yaga. So Veda says if somebody has given that, so 1 year in that house there was only the people were crying like that. So these kind of sentences actually does not hold any logic, and so and also there is no scientific validity to prove that. Second one, constructed on blind faith. So most of the people say if you ask why you are doing this karma, so the answer comes as like this: we don't know why we are doing that, but our ancestors are doing, so we are following that. So this is the second possible answer. So the third possible question is why we are not? It is not relevant. They say we hear this kind of thing, inability or disinterest. How can we do this kind of karma in the present age? Maybe the difficulty or some are not interested. So these are all the possible questions which can say that it is not appropriate to do the Vedic karma. So we try to answer this question through the lens of Mimamsa. We are going to analyze on 3 questions. Is that no scientific reason or contradictory to reason, constructed on blind faith, and then inability and disinterest to perform the rituals. So then the answer to the first question is that science cannot prove the existence of dharma because of its imperceptible nature. Because Shastra says that the dharma is not non-perceptible. So anything is non-perceptible, it cannot be proved with the limited capacities which we have in. So its accuracy is limited to the perceptible things. The accuracy of science is limited to the perceptible things. That is why whenever any scientific theories proposed which are directly impacted through the inference, they are not accurate. Most of the cases they are not accurate. They are bound to change by time. So that is why one theory can be overcome by other theory like that. So inference cannot be a important tool to identify the existence of this imperceptible thing called apurvam. There was one thing which is contradictory to reason like that is said. So the answer to that is that the contradictory statements are considered as arthavada, and the purposes are clearly stated. So what is the purpose of this kind of a statement which talks about something which is very contradictory to the world? In this regard, so how they have come to this kind of a arrangement that arthavada talks about something different, and so Veda or Shruti talks about something called apurvam. So how they come to know all these things? So this is the source. How they detect that Shruti is the source of dharma. Mimamsa considers Shruti as the only source of dharma. That is clearly reflected in the sutra Chodana Lakshanartho Dharma. It clearly states the sutra has 2 meanings, which talks about the dharma and also what is the proof of evidence of dharma. So if we take Yaha Dharma Saha Chodana Lakshana. Chodana eva lakshanam pramanam dharmasya, like that. So chodana eva lakshanam. Chodana means vidhi. Vidhi means Vedic injunction is called vidhi. So chodana eva pramanam. So only vidhi is the pramanam for dharma. And then to define dharma, what is dharma? It says whichever is stated by vidhi is called dharma. So from that we can dharma is defined like this. Dharma is an act conducive to the highest good which is indicated by the Vedas. So Vedena prayojanam uddishya vidhiyamanaha arthaha dharma. Vidhiyamana, Vedena vidhiyamanaha artha, which has been injuncted by the Vedas for some purpose. That is called dharma. So mostly this dharma actually here it means the karma. So there is a process which involves from the karma you will get this punyam or papam, and then through the punyam and papam you will get the result. So it is the it has been structured in such a way. Okay, so before that how you conclude that Shruti is the only source or the evidence of dharma? So to become or the pramanam of dharma, because as the sutra says Chodana Lakshanam that means pramanam for dharma. So, Mimamsa lays out two important properties or criteria to identify the pramanam. The pramanam has to fulfill two criteria. The evidence maybe. It has to generate the cognition of the unknown. Anadhikatartha bodhakam. Pramanam has to be anadhikatartha bodhakam. That means it has to give the idea of the unknown. Then only you can consider it as a pramanam. For example, pratyaksham. For example, our sense organs. Sense organs is generating the idea about the things which is outside, which we are seeing, which is not known before. Now, through our sense organs, we are knowing things. So that is why pratyaksham is pramanam. Witness is the pramanam. So this is one criteria. It has even in inference also. Through on seeing the smoke, you are inferring the existence of the fire, which is not known before, not seen. So the pramanam has to have this criteria, anadhikatartha bodhakam. And the next is that cognition should be non-contradictory. You should not contradict with this object. The cognition should not contradict with, should not capture the contradictory object. So if these two criteria is enough for a pramanam. So if you take Shruti, Shruti also talks about this anadhikatartha, that is that the dharma. So it is anadhikatartha bodhakam and also abhajitartha bodhakam. That means it doesn't contradict with what it gives. So in this regard, as Shruti gives the non-contradictory cognition of the unknown called apurvam, it is indeed a pramanam. So through this we establish that Shruti is the pramanam. In fact, it is a swatah pramanam. That means independent pramanam. So how can you conclude that it is independent pramanam? So they say there is no factors to indicate it is apramanam. So here, why? Because they say it is apaurushaya. In verbal cognition, in Shabda Bodha, anything which we get from the sentence, okay, the validity of that cognition can depend upon the person who is speaking. So that is why in the world also we look for the author to read the content. In the case of Vedas, it is if you consider, so that is why they are saying there are no factors to indicate it is apramanam. So to indicate something apramanam in the sentential knowledge or the knowledge which you derive from the sentences, there can be two, whether it should be contradictory or the person who speaks may have some kind of a defects. So if it is a paurushaya, there is a possibility of mistakes. So that mistakes can reflect in his work. Maybe because everyone are prone to, most of the humans are prone to mistakes, like Brahma, Pramada and all these things can happen. So, but in Shruti, there are no mistakes we are finding. As it is abhajitartha bodhaka and anadhikatartha bodhaka, there is no factor to prove it is apramanam. So that is why it is accepted as apaurushaya, not paurushaya. Moreover, if it is in normal cases, in our normal text which we are other than the Vedas, we have this dridha kartru smaranam. That means the author has been remembered. If you take whatever, even if you take with the Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything is attached with some author. But when you ask about who has created the Vedas, there is no answer. There is no dridha kartru smaranam, that he is the karta, he has created the Vedas. And this can be proved from that uninterrupted adhyayana parampara. Everybody says, I have received this from my guru. Guru has taught me this. And if you ask his guru, he says he has taught me. So like that, there is no Dridha Kartru Smarana. That means he has done. Just like we have, if Ramayana is written by Valmiki, we know the Valmiki has written the Ramayana. So with the availability of the uninterrupted Adhyayana Parampara, it is considered as Apaurushaya. There are many arguments on that. So there is another question. In the world, we never see the text which is not attributed to a person. So Vedic text, they are also having sentences, so they should also be considered as created by someone. So this is the question put forth by other people, but that lacks a important logic. The texts which are available other than the Vedic text are having a complete connection with the author. There is, but in the case of Veda, it is not like that. And then the Mimamsaka asks another question. What problem you have if I accept Veda as Apaurushaya? You have to give some Badhakam. For example, if we accept something which is not proper, then we have to say you should not accept like this because this is the problem it will create. So this is the Badhakam you have to give. But there is no Badhakam like that. Let it be not created by an author. Why can't be? What is the problem? If you ask, there is no answer. If you say like this, no, there should not be, any work cannot be authorless. That is not the case. So they give another example. If you give answer like this, if it is not created by anyone, then if you don't remember the karta of the author of the text, then it cannot be a text. If you accept like this, there is one badhaka like that. He says, if there are some well in the roadside of a village, but we don't know who has created that, that doesn't mean that it is not created. If you accepted that you don't know the person who has created the well, who has digged the well, then the well has to be there always. Apaurushaya, it has not been created by anyone. You can accept like that, but this is not possible. So in this, so the same badhaka can happen to the Veda. If it is not created by anyone, any author, then the same way, the same logic can be applied to the well also. So in that case, they say, no, there is a difference between the well and the text. Regarding the well, the important purpose of the well is to fetch the water to the people. The idea of the creator does not have any impact, maybe less impact than its original purpose. But in the case of text, it is imperative to know the author, because if you see in the world, people only look the author and then go for the text. So it is common in the world that looking for an author, and because once you know the speciality of the author, then only you believe on his words, because the validity of the sentences depends upon the validity of the person. But in this case, even in the Adhyayana Parampara, this has been no karta was told, but still people are taking its words, giving the validity, is assuming the validity of the Shruti. So this itself is a testimony that even though there are no karta, there is no karta, it can be pramanam. In the case of text, because even this tradition is followed from the time unknown. Till the time unknown, we don't, the same thing that there is no karta of Veda, not even in single instance, the karta of Veda has formed. But still, the sentences, the pramanyam has been accepted. So this is also one of the testimony to that Apaurushayatvam. So that is why, as the Smritis, Kalpasutras, Purana, Itihasa, Shishtachara, they are also confined with Shruti, considered as Pramana. if they contradict with the Shruti, then they are considered as apramanam. So that is why, because of this apaurushayattva nature of the Shruti, Mimamsa plays an important role to unearth the intention of the Shruti. Because in the normal circumstances, if the speaker's intention is enough to identify the subject matter of the text. But here it is not possible because there is no Purusha here. So the abhipraya of the Shruti cannot be identified without some nyayas. So Mimamsa lays out many nyayas, or kind of a tarka they say, to identify that what is the intended meaning of the Shruti. So in this also, in the Shrutis also, in the Shruti also, Vidhi Vakyam is considered as the pramana. Even in Shruti also, it is considered Vidhi Vakyam is the. There are many sentences in that Vidhi Vakyam. The Vidhi is the injunction is considered as the prominent means of knowledge, because it has useful function of establishing purposeful thing which is unknown. Prayojanavad artha vidhanena arthavan vidhi. Because vidhi is the only thing which is which we know that it is having some purpose. Injunction is the only thing which establish that it has some purpose. Normally, if we take in our normal life also, instruction holds more validity than the normal sentence, because it initiates the pravritti. It initiates the effort from the person who is hearing. That means bring the book. If you say like that, then on hearing that, the person will put his effort on doing that things. So this is the important prayojanam of the vidhi. If normally if says there is a dog in the house, it doesn't serve any purpose. Yes, we can know that's all. But vidhi at once initiates a person to do. So Vidhivakyam has this kind of a capability to generate potency or effort in the person. And important thing, it has the useful function of establishing a purposeful thing. Prayojanavad artha vidhanena. So if we take the vidhi, swarga kamo ejeta. That means to attain swarga, do yaga. So this is called vidhi. This vidhi actually implies that to get swarga, you have to do the yaga, perform yaga. Swarga kamaha, the person who wish swarga, ejeta, has to do yaga. That means from this sentence itself, we can say yagaha swarga sadhanam. Yaga. So yaga is the sadhanam or the tool to attain swarga. So it is prayojanam artha. It talks about yaga which has some prayojanam, which is attached with some phalam. The phalam is swarga. Prayojanavat artha vidhanena. This yaga is the tool for swarga is not known through any other means, only through this vidhivakyam. So by this vidhivakyam as also has this criteria, fulfilled this criteria, anadhigatartha bodhakam, which is telling about something which is not known. So from the sentence swargakamo ejeta, we come to know which is not known before, that swarga, some purpose is there, for that some cause has been described. So the same way, there is one vidhi called swadhyayo adhyetavya. That means all the Vedas has to be studied. So then what it means is that as this is adhyetavya, so the vidhi is actually determined by three suffixes. One is ling, lot and tavya pratyaya. So these are all the suffixes used in Sanskrit which denotes that it is a vidhi. That means it is order or injunction. So swadhyayo dhyetavya, there is a tavya suffix is there. So from that we can infer, we can say that this is a vidhi. What it says is that entire Vedic text has to be studied. So what is the prayojanam of this? Is that artha jnanam. So if you study the Vedas, you will get the meaning. The artha jnanam is there. So the artha jnanam is that the meaning, the knowledge of the meaning is, we don't know. This has been told by the Shruti, by the Vidhi. So Vidhi says that to get the artha jnanam, you have to study Vedas. So here, that means itself, it says all the Veda bhaga has some prayojanam artha. So there is some prayojanam in all the Veda bhagas. In that, Vidhi becomes the parama pramanam because it initiates action immediately. And then comes the arthavada. So all the other things which has been mentioned in the Vedas are considered as arthavadas. So they play subordinate role to the Vidhi. So same way here also, in Laukika Vidhi also, we also say do this, do that. Okay, so that the only difference is that Laukika Vidhi does not reveal the Apurvam. That means the Punyam or Papam is not revealed in the Apurva Vidhi, in the Laukika Vidhi. But whereas in the other Vedic Vidhi, it is important that it has to give the idea of Apurvam. So then we come how the Apurvam is understood from the Vidhi. Because this Vidhi, Swarga Kamo Ejeta, does not talk about any Apurvam. It says you do yaga to get the Swarga. But then how Apurvam is understood? The Apurvam is understood through Arthapati. Because if you take the Vidhi, Swarga Kamo Ejeta, which says to attain Swarga, we have to perform yaga. So yaga is the Karanam for Swarga. In the causal relationship, there is a important thing is that the cause has to be present before the effect. That means yaga should be present before the Swarga. But here yaga is finished now, and then Swarga will get the Swarga after the death of a person. So then yaga cannot become a Karanam for the Swarga. That means there should be some intermediate, so that through that intermediate, so yaga can create. So for example, if we say, if you study in this university, you will get the degree. Or if you write the exam, you will get the degree. So writing is finished, you have completed the examination, you will not get degree at once. So it will take some time. But there is a continuity. So if, from the writing, then correction and everything is happening. So there is a continuity till the degree, attainment of the degree. So then you can say this is connected. So writing exam will fetch you degree. You can say like that. The same way here also, yaga is the cause of Swarga, means there should be a continuity. There is nothing, no visible continuity is available. So that is, there should be some intermediate which is invisible, that we call it as Apurvam. And then, so coming to the second question. It is said that it is constructed on blind faith. So the answer is, as Shruti is the only Pramanam which we have been established before, then the karma has to be done according to the injunction only, because it is the Pramanam. Whatever the Pramanam says, we have to think. So there is nothing, the faith does not have any role in this. Moreover, the Adhyayana of Vedas, karma and rituals are done with utmost caution by the Sishtas for time unknown, and continuing the tradition till now cannot be based on the faith only. If that is the case, then the other Shastras will become redundant, because with the faith itself, we can do all the karmas. So what is the purpose of Mimamsa and all the other Shastras which helps in understanding the Vedic karma? No need. And then there is one thing which says, no, even though we do the Vedic karmas, it is not giving the purpose. So why should we believe on that? So the futility of Vedic karmas are actually attributed to the flaws or defects in the performance, because this is normal even in the modern age also. Even if you if there is a vaccine for something, it cannot be 100% curable to everyone. Maybe some problem will be there. We have to analyze. So what may be the cause or defect through which this is not obtained? Then we will analyze that. The same way also, the Vedic karmas, the futility of Vedic karmas can be attributed to the flaws, defects, maybe late. Then they may receive the phalam in the next janma also. It is not completely delegated. So coming to the third question. So the third factor is the inability or disinterest to perform the rituals. So how can it is very difficult to do and all these things. So how Shastra look into these things? So before going to the inability or disinterest, first we have to see how it is able. So to perform any act, propensity, pravritti is required. For any action we have to perform, we have to put some effort. Shastras lay out three primary factors that generate the propensity. How this pravritti can be generated. The Shastra lay out three important things. They are called. The first one is Ishta Sadhanata Jnana, cognition of the purpose of the karma. So whatever Ishta Sadhanam, idam mad Ishta Sadhanam. So this thing will give me the desired thing. The idea of that makes you to put the effort. If somebody wants to get into the course or program, BA program or something, so then you look that it is if you join this university, you will get this program. So Ishta Sadhanam, that means getting the degree. The degree is the Ishtam. For that, Sadhanam is joining or admitting into the university. So once you know this is the Ishta Sadhanam, then you can directly put your effort. This is the one thing. Ishta Sadhanata Jnana. This is very important. People know only na prayojanam anuddishya mandopi pravartate. Without any purpose, nobody will put their effort. So first one, we have to know it has some purpose. So first is Ishta Sadhanata Jnana. Next, even there is Ishta Sadhanata Jnanam, there should be another thing which is called Kriti Sadhyata Jnana, which has to be achieved by me, the person. Person has to think about, I have the ability to do this. It can be achieved by me. For example, going to moon may be desirable to many people, but it is not easily achievable for many. So, Kriti Sadhyata Jnana. If somebody it is achieved, it is doable. If somebody has this kind of a knowledge that it is doable, then he can put his effort. Otherwise, there is no effort will not happen. And then third one is called the Balavad Anishta Ananubandhitva Jnana. This is important. If you put on some effort, but the suffering you had in between, if it leads to more suffering, then we won't put our effort on that. So in some case, for example, if we don't want to do something that is not ishtam, for example, if we do something, if it create, for example, eating ice cream in the rain. So during the rainy season, eating ice cream may harm us, but eating ice cream is maybe Ishta Sadhanam and Kriti Sadhyam also. But people will not put their effort because some people, because that if they eat the ice cream in the rainy day, then they can get cold. So the dukkham which comes from the result of attaining this, if it is more than the process, then people won't put their effort. So Balavad Anishta Ananubandhitva Jnana. If these three are there, so it should Balavad Anishta Ananubandhi. It should not create more harm than the achieved thing. So these three are very important in generating the pravritti. The same way, the reverse is for the aversion. That means Anishta Sadhanam. If I do this, I will get this bad thing. So I should. So people will not put their effort. The aversion happens. And then Kriti Asadhyata Jnanam. This cannot be done by me. If this knowledge has happened, then no, the people will not put their effort. And then Balavad Anishta Anubandhi. If I do this, I will get. So that is why in the case of ice cream also, that the people will not go for the ice cream. Okay, so these are very important thing which has been discussed. For any effort to happen, ishta sadhanata jnanam, kriti sadhyata jnanam, balavadanishta anubanshitva jnanam is required. The same opposite is required for nivritti. And most important is that this cognition can be either prama or brahma. Even if it is not ishta sadhanam, if you have the illusion of that ishta sadhanam, the illusion that it is ishta sadhanam, then you can put your, people may put their effort. So it is not that it should always be pramad. Okay, even if there is a brahma, then it will happen. So with this concept, we can just attribute to this inability and disinterest thing. So for the inability factor, maybe all the three will be there. That means kriti sadhyata jnanam can be there. Yes, it can be done. The rituals can be done, or it is ishta sadhanam, it can give some punyam or whatever it has been stated, and then it is not balavad anishta, it does not create something more harm to me while doing this. But still people are not able to perform karma, maybe attribute to some other factors also, such as capability, the samarthyam, because each and every vidhi requires a kind of a samarthyam. That healthy person, the person should be healthy, and he has to know about how to perform that. All these things comes under the capability. And then circumstances. There are some circumstances which you cannot do all the karma as per, because like if you take the COVID section, the time of COVID, the lockdowns and all these things are happening, you can because of this sandarbha, we may not be able to perform some karma. This can be, the inability can be attributed to the circumstances also. And then eligibility criteria. There is an adhikara for each and every karma. So the person who is eligible, then only he can do that. Even though he has kriti sadhyata jnanam, ishta sadhyata jnanam, balavadhanishta anubanshitva jnanam, this adhikara also restricts person to do things. And then comes the laziness. The laziness means if laziness may be of kashta sadhyam. That means it has to be, if you have to endure more pain to attain this. So this is maybe the factor. So inability can be attributed to samarthyam, circumstance, eligibility, and laziness. The disinterest can be of two causes, either the illusion of the three factors or the ignorance of the three. That means it has been known that no, if I do this, this does not give anything, like this kind of ishta sadhanata bhrama, kriti sadhyata bhrama, and balavadhanishta anubanshitva bhrama. These things, if it is there, then the effort will not happen. Or otherwise, not knowing that whether this is ishta sadhanam, not knowing that this is ishta sadhanam, doing Vedic karma is ishta sadhanam, like that, that is also can make the person disinterested in the karma. So there is another important factors which is also have some role in this is dehatma bhrama, veda apramanya bhrama, and alogikatva bhava bhrama. Means thinking that deha itself is the atma, there is nothing called beyond the deha. So through that, so if there is a dehatma bhrama, then the punyam papam cannot have any role in his doing the karma. And veda pramanya karma, thinking that veda is not pramanam, as already we have proved it is pramanam. If he is having something, if a person has veda is not pramanam, then that also cannot happen. And then alaukikatva bhava brahma, that means there is nothing called alaukika, that is not that swarga punyam papam is not possible. If that somebody has this kind of a notion, then it can also not happen. So overall, it is the contention is that it is relevant once if we have this the person who has all these things, along with this capability and all these things, he will definitely follow the Vedic karma. So in this regard, some basic points to know the Mimamsa Darshana is there. That Mimamsa Darshana is very unique from the other darshanam because it is addressed to the audience who already have the discriminative knowledge of Atma as eternal and is different from body and mind. So the person who, because the punyam only in the case of Swarga Kamo Yajeta, after doing the yaga, you won't get the Swarga. That itself implies that something has to be constant from the person, the doer, and the person who is actually experiencing the Swarga should be same. So then this cannot become, the body is not a stable thing. So after the death, the body will not be there. So there is someone constant who is different from body, that is called Atma, who is eternal or Nitya, has to be accepted. Then only you can understand this karma theory. So this is, so Sharira Jatrikta Atma Jnanam is the prerequisite to understand the karma. So if somebody thinks about the Sharira is only the Atma, then they understand, he cannot understand properly about the karma. And the most important thing is Vidhi Vakyam and Nishedha Vakyam holds the significance in the Shastra. Vidhi Vakyam gives the idea of Punyam and initiates the propensity. That means the pravritti, and Nishedha Vakyam gives the idea of Papam and initiates the aversion. That means you don't do. That means it itself says it is Anishta Sadhanam, Nakalanjam Bhakshayet. So if you eat this Kalanja Bhakshanam is Nishiddham. So anything is Nishiddha means it is Anishta Sadhanam, which give you Dukkham. Same way, in instructions also, we say don't do this, because this will lead to some bad Dukkham. So this is the important thing. And the contradictory statements, obvious statements, stories, everything are called Arthavada. So that is why the most of the time what happens is that people take this Arthavada as the real, and then having a kind of a Brahma, and that this is not, Vedic rituals are not, does not hold any validity. But they are considered as Arthavada, because Arthavada will always, that is the thing, is that Arthavada may not be true or false. But Arthavada helps, the main purpose is to create interest and awareness. Normally, we can do also this. In our, the advertisement and all these things, actually it's an Arthavada. Whether it is real or not is something different. But the main purpose of the Arthavada is to create interest. So, for a child to eat something, the mother may say, if you don't eat this, ghost will take away. Or if you eat this, you will become stronger. Or like that, like Bhima or like that. If they say like this, that does not mean to have the validity that he will become Bhima or the ghost will catch him. But the importance is that eating is very good to him, so he has to somehow makes the effort to eat. So the validity of the sentence do not matter in most cases. Another important thing this Arthavada does is that if an injunction is there, if it is not followed, then it will lose its validity. Same way, if somebody of a higher authority gives any instruction to someone, if he does not follow the instruction, that means the validity of the sentence or the instruction does not hold any validity. Maybe rules or regulations put out by the government, but if people does not follow that, then there is no use for that. So to generate or make the person to put their effort, we follow the thing called Arthavada. So somehow make them to put their effort. So that is the important thing. So it may be Stuti or Ninda. It may be of two types, Stuti or Ninda. So in this, so for the sake of interpretation, the entire Shruti has been classified into 5 parts: Vidhi, Nishedha, and Mantra. So the main purpose of the mantra is to show Prayoga Samavetartha Prakashakam. That means whatever is used in the mantra, in the Prayoga, that means in the karma, it will actually show some light about what are all these things. And Namadheya. Namadheya is the nomenclature which is used for identifying the difference between each and every karma. That's why many karma has different names. And then Arthavada, the main purpose of the Arthavada is Stuti or Ninda. So that if we praise us, then people get more interest, so that they will put their effort on that karma. Or Ninda, they get, if they condemn that, then people would not put their effort. So Nivritti is the prayojan. In the Miyamsa Darshanam, Miyamsa means Pujita Vichara. So it is the interpretation of Vedic sentences. So by this, there are many, they devised more and more kind of a Nyaya through which we can understand this Vidhi Arthavada more clearly. So it is divided into two, Purva Miyamsa and Uttara Miyamsa. The Uttara Miyamsa is the Vedanta, also called as Karma Miyamsa, Dharma Miyamsa, Purva Tantram, etc. And it is considered as a Vakya Shastram. That is, it is the main purpose is how to analyze the Shruti Vakyam. and how to get the intended meaning correctly or accurately from the Vedic sentences. So that it lists out many nyayas, which is very popular in the domain. So to bring the valid intention of the Vedic sentences. So it is propagated by Jaimini Maharishi. Which is the purpose of the Shastram is to give complete understanding of the dharma. That is why in Shloka Vartika, dharmakyam vishayam vaktum mimamsayaha prayojanam. The main purpose of the Mimamsa is to talk about dharma. And then the Mimamsa has 12 chapters divided into Upadesha Shatkam and Nardidesha Shatkam. So it has Bhashya called Sabar Bhashyam by Shabaraswami. Kumarila Bhatta wrote a Vartikam called Shloka Vartikam. And it has two prominent Sampradaya, Prabhakara Sampradaya and Bhatta Sampradaya. It has some kind of differences. That's all. Main Siddhanta is not different. So I stop my lecture here itself, and I thank the organizers to give me this opportunity.
Yeah. So, sir, I think it was a very interesting lecture. Also, sir, from what I understand, Mimamsa itself means analysis, right? The very word Mimamsa starts with analysis.
Yes.
Right? It means analysis. Now, the other important point that I would like to highlight what you mentioned is that for the Mimamsa Shastra, other than the other darshanams, the Mimamsa darshanam, the Veda Pramanyam is ultimate.
Yes.
Among the other pramanas, though that Nyaya, Sankhya and other, they accept different pramanas and they try to prove. But for Mimamsa, the Aptavakyam, Shabdavakyam, which is the Vedas, acts as the ultimate, right? Which is why you mentioned that if the adhikari or if the person has got a Brahma of Veda Apramanyam, he doesn't believe in the Vedas, right? He doesn't believe in the Shrutis, then probably for him the Mimamsa Shastra or Darshana, it cannot hold good because he will not be able to accept it further, right?
Yes.
This is one point that you mentioned. I'm just trying to recap it, summarize what you said. The second point that you said is, you said alaukikatva abhava.
Yes.
That means he has to believe that there is something other than this lokam.
Yes.
It could be Swargam, it could be whatever it is.
Yes.
But there is something beyond this lokam.
Yes.
If he doesn't believe in that, again, it becomes very difficult for him to accept the further aspects of the Mimamsa Darshana. And of course, you mentioned about Dehatma, that accepting the Deha, which then takes back to the Charvaka Darshana, who believe Deha is Atma.
Yes.
So this clearly removes that Brahma, that it cannot be Deha, cannot be Atma, that it doesn't qualify the Adhikari to study the Mimamsa Shastra. So I think these aspects are very clear, and I would also like, because many people have asked these questions, it's very important for us to understand that these are the qualifications or the entry points for an Adhikari to get into Mimamsa. He has to accept the authority of the Vedas, of the Shrutis, right? He has to accept that
it is not accepting that Shruti has the authority, has been proven.
Correct.
Actually,
has been proven.
Okay.
Correct.
Has been proven. So it has been proved in this way. So
correct.
So even a person who is having the Brahma, it is the duty of the Shastra to remove his Brahma, and Shastra does the thing actually.
Absolutely.
It has removed the Brahma and this thing.
Correct.
So till he hadn't approached the Shastra, he will be in his own world only, not in the.
So what you're saying is that it is important for the person to study this Shruti, this Shastra properly. Along with the respective things, he has to understand what exactly the Vedas are telling us, and he has to go by whatever they are telling.
Yes.
Now, once, sir, in terms of moksha, what according to Mimamsa is moksha?
Yes. There is no clear mentioning of moksha. That means what the other darshana says, like that it has not been said. But dukkha nivritti is considered as moksha. You have to. It is a point where you are relieved from any dukkha. That is called the moksha.
And this dukkha nivritti, it can be in this loka or it can be in any other loka also.
No, it is not like that. They doesn't go for the loka which has been other loka, like which has been said in other darshanas. Just like Nayayika says, they also saying like that. Same as the Nayayikas.
Okay.
So once this mithya jnanam, everything goes away. Just like the Atma will be free from all the bondage. Same way here also.
Right. No, because the reason I ask this is because the difference between the Purva and Uttara Mimamsa,
Yes.
Uttara Mimamsa accepts, of course, Atma is eternal, but then everything else is Mithya. So the moment you recognize that, you automatically, you are into that Atman. Like that, similarly, because Mimamsa, in the Mimamsa, the karma assumes a lot of importance. So is karma also real? Because it should be real for us to do the different activities.
Yes. Here karma is real only. Yes.
So dukkha nivritti through karma or activities is probably the way it is.
No, they are also not saying like that. They only discuss about the karma only.
Okay.
But the dukkha nivritti has to be happen by one getting away from this karma only. Once this punya and papa has to be ceased to exist, then only you will get the dukkha nivritti. They also have this idea about that. Okay, so doing the karma itself will give you mukti is not possible. But there are some statements which they say this kind of akshayagam havai chaturmasi yajinaha. Like that, there are some sentences which says if you do chaturmasi yaga, you will get that kind of akshayam phalam, like that. Which if you go by the Manamayodeya text, then it is that dukkha nivritti is the moksha.
Okay. And also, sir, in Mimamsa Darshana, the Ishvara.
Yes.
I don't think they accept the concept of Ishvara in Mimamsa, right?
Yes.
So it is purely based on the person who is doing the karma as prescribed by the Shrutis.
Yes.
And the phala of that is automatically given.
That is actually there is a discussion on this regard also. But the thing is that if you accept Ishvara, in what case he is very useful in the scheme of karma. You do karma, you will get the apurvam, and then you will get the phalam. That's all. There is no need for some other person who was very satisfied with his karma and giving the phalam.
Right.
So there is no need for that. So
Right.
if karma itself is capable of doing that, so why you are attributing some other person, attributing these duties to the other person, like Ishvara? It doesn't mean that they don't want Ishvara. Ishvara may be useful for creation and other things which has been explained in the Vedanta. But as per the karma to generate the phalam, because most of what we say, if you do the karma, Ishvara will be pleased and then he will give the phalam like that. That is not needed. Because karma can generate the apurvam. That apurvam can give the phalam.
So like in modern times, we just say, as you sow, so shall you reap. Whatever you do is a reaction. So this is more or less in that aspect, right? Your every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So whatever karma you do, you are getting a phala, which is in line with whatever the karma has been done.
So that is the important thing. So the karma generates the phala through some invisible thing.
Yes.
Because not all the good karma, even if you do, cannot give the same result. The result differs. So there is something invisible which is actually cannot be identified by any other means of knowledge. Right. So in search of, so we can assume that if we do this, something is affecting our results. So what is that thing? How can we understand that? Only Shruti gives the idea about that.
Understood.
Because if you, how we get the idea? We get the idea by doing the Vihita karma, you will get the punya. Because it gives the decided phalam.
Right.
And doing the Nishiddha karma, you get the pap.
Right.
But so this Vihitatvam, Nishiddhatvam, these two things depends upon actually the Shruti only. Because it has to be by the Shruti, because we don't know. We don't know whether doing this karma will give us this kind of a punyam. Through the punyam we will get. For example, if we go for a temple, we don't know without the Shruti, going to temple will give us whatever we decide.
Correct.
Okay. So the casual relation happens only if the cause is before the effect. If I do something, I have to get the result as it is. As soon as I have done that work, then only we can identify the causal relationship. For example, if I write an exam, then I will get by the result. So the result will take a process which can be visible by us. But if you go to a temple and pray for something, you may not get it as soon as you pray, you finished your prayer. So there is something in between, so which we know through the Shruti only.
Right.
Yes.
Sir, another important aspect, which is also it is a topic of the discussion today, and you highlighted that in many places, the relevance of Vedic rituals today,
Yes.
or Vedic karma. So you have very beautifully, you have put a background, a context to these are the different aspects of performing Vedic rituals. And you also mentioned about the interest of the person who is performing.
Yes.
What are things he should be. So if you were to tell a few messages to the current generation, right? The existing generation. Okay, the other important thing also I wanted to mention, sir, highlight, and probably you can you let me know if it is right, is that the karmas also have adhikaris, right?
Yes. Yes.
All the Vedic karmas have adhikaris. Who is supposed to do what?
Yes.
Right? This was also one of the questions asked.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
it has got very clearly adhikari bhedam.
Yes.
That who has to do what kind of karma.
So because we know that the karma has to be performed in such a way so that we will get this phalam through the Shruti only. Then how it instructs, we have to follow.
Correct.
No, if we get into university to get a degree, the entire procedure which they give, we have to follow. We cannot question them. Why you are asking like
Right.
this?
Right.
Why you have to write the examination?
Correct.
Okay, so there is a procedure. So with that procedure only it will be available. Because if you say, I know I have studied everything, just I will come and write the exam. Will you
Yeah.
give the degree? It does not happen.
Correct.
Because the procedure laid out by the university, you have to follow the procedure only. The same way, the Shruti instructs us to do like this only.
Correct. So the other,
If it is attained by any other means, then no problem. Okay, we can get degree by any other means. There is nothing, no thing. But to get initiated into the Shruti, Vedic karma, then what are all the procedures laid out by the Vedas? We have to abide by that.
correct. So as I was mentioning, the relevance of Vedic rituals. So today we see many of the rituals, right, which are prescribed, supposed to be done. You can start with the Nitya karmas itself, like Sandhya Vandanam or Agni Hotram and other things, and leading to the Yajnas, Yagas, or the other kind of karmas.
Yes.
Many of these things have become Lupta today, or Lupta in the sense, very few people are doing it, very few people are still practicing it. Most of the people have left it over many generations. What would be your message, sir, from your perspective of bringing these people back into this fold, right? Like you mentioned about interest. How do we generate this interest among the people?
So that I told you that three important factors now. Kriti sadhyata jnanam, ishtasaranta jnanam, balavadhanasthana bandhitva jnanam. If anyone has this idea, he will generally he will go. He will initiate his, he will have the interest to do that. Because we see most of the people having interest based on these things only. One thing. The another thing is that maybe that I told you that the Dehatma Brahma and these things has to be established through the facts. For example, we have to accept that there is Adrishtam is there, that means Punyam Papam is there. Or otherwise, we cannot explain the thing that a child is born to a poor family or rich family or that family. So who is responsible for that? Because the child cannot be because a child which is born in the poor family is devoid of his some privileges. Born in the rich family has some privileges. So what is the basis on this? You cannot question the parents or the government to make them poor or rich. So this is we have to think why there is something called there are two important things which the Shastra is the only praman. One is regarding the Punya Papa and then the Atma Swarup. So that is why you can infer to some extent that there is something invisible is there available. But you cannot exactly say how it is affected or how it is created or all these things. Same way regarding the Atma. You can say there is something Atma stable thing is there through because all the Darshana talks about this. You can, if you search in every Darshana, Atma Vichara is also there. Karma Vichara is also there. There is a karma like that because the karma always stays with the Atma. That karma only gives the birth and rebirth cycle and all these things. It is common in all the darshanas, which has been proved with relevant inference. But it cannot stay that itself. So because to overcome that, we have to understand how it operates.
Correct.
So
Correct.
if you see the Mimamsa Shastra or the Vedanta, both they say regarding Atma and Dharma. Dharma says Chodana Lakshanartha Dharma, in that Shrutireva Pramanam. Veda is the only Pramanam on Dharma, one thing. And the same way, in the Atma also, Shastra Yonitvat, Shastrameva Yoni Pramanam.
Correct.
In both these cases, that is why these two Shastras were considered as more prominent than the other darshanas. Because of this only. So the main thing we can, if we want to generate interest in the students, then we have to explain the Ishta Sadhanatvam, Balavadhanishthana Bandhitvam, and all these things. And the same way, if the differences in the world things, especially among the living beings. So which affects this? There is no answer till, even if you go with the science or anything, there is no answer for this. And especially about the Atma. So with this tarka only, they start, but other darshana does not have the scope of identifying what these two are. Because their understanding of Shruti is something different. That is why in these two, the Mimamsa, both are considered as, Shruti is considered as an Apurushaya, independent Pramana. So that is why we have to think of Dharma and also about the Atma.
Right. And also, sir, beautifully, because you mentioned this, it also makes me think, because which is why probably this darshana, both of these, both the Purva and Uttara, and very beautifully they have been named Purva and Uttara, are called Mimamsa because it is an analysis of the Shruti.
Shruti, yes.
Right? Having taken the Shruti Pramanyam as the primary thing and analyzing what the Shrutis are telling.
Yes. And analyzing that is which is unknown by any other means. Which cannot be known by any other means.
I think this is a very, very beautiful and important point. Both the Dharma and the Brahma.
Yes.
You know, both of these, which are explained, the earlier explained by Purva Mimamsa and the later explained by Uttara Mimamsa, both of these, to give any of the other the pramanams, just for a normal layman, is going to be very difficult.
Yes.
You cannot establish by any of the normal pramanams.
That is why I told you that if you go by the inference, if the available scientific this thing, each and every theory can be preceded by some other theory. You can see in most of the cases, some theory will be in 1960, there will be some theory that will be objected or refuted by another theory. It will go on. And another important thing is that if we go on discussing, science almost discussed about the Prakriti, which is available before us. The Shastram, Sankhya Shastra or any other Shastra, it always says the Prakriti is Satata Vikriya. It is always constantly changing. So there is nothing which you can, if you go on digging into the Prakriti, you will go on digging, that's all. It is constantly changing.
Right. Right.
Okay. So there is something which is beyond that Prakriti, which we have to understand and which actually experience. That is why they put this, they say that people are following for centuries. It cannot be based only on the faith. So that going to the temple has this logic, is that it gives the dharma, that is why they are going. Otherwise, why should we, just for pleasure or some peace of our mind, it is not mentioned, because there is other ways. There are many other ways to achieve that. If there is not possible, then only it instructs us to do that. And another thing, the why this generation is not doing that, or not very interested in that, but anything which is achieved very easily, the karma is kashta sadhya, but it is ishtam, parama prayojanam. It is the prayojanam of the Shruti is very highest good, but it has to be achieved with a lot of effort. It is little bit kashta. So there is a people may get carried away by this point. So it is normal. It is in the universe. Everybody will aspire for an easy way to get. Even if somebody announces that if you study for 3 months, I will give you this degree instead of studying for 3 years, obviously people will go for that. So that, but the only thing is that this, because of this Dehatma Brahma, maybe we are very much carried away by the happenings around us, and most importantly, but if we know that this will not be an ultimate, that maybe if you go on with the Dehatma Brahma, it will go on taking you through the pit only, not for your benefit. If once he realizes that, there is nothing to stop. Yes.
Absolutely, sir. I think it was a beautiful exposition. It was a wonderful introduction to all the listeners. about Mimamsa Shastra, which is, as you rightly said, so very important because of this Shruti Pramanyam. It becomes a very important darshana, this and the following Uttara Mimamsa darshana. Dr. Mahulikar ma'am, if you could say a few words and then we can close the session.
Yeah.
Sir, just a minute.
Yeah.
I was not very good at English, so maybe I clear to many of you. So I apologize for that.
Thank you, Desikanji, so much. And I would just like to supplement with 2 points which you mentioned, in your speech. One is it is Pravritti Pradhana Marga, Mimamsa. And I would rather say that why this Pravritti Pradhana Marga was, it came into existence. It has some social background for that. Because, Buddha being born in 563 before the Common Era. And then later on, because on the ethical grounds, Buddhism captured the minds of all the people. And there was in all a total lethargy and nivritti marga all over the world. The society, the social structure itself got disrupted. So to bring back the society, to the karma marga was the need of the hour. And that is when Jaimini came forward. So that has a social structure as well, besides this exposition. And another thing Desikanji mentioned about Vakyartha Shastra. So I would just like to tell the participants here, Vakyartha Shastra is a hermeneutical science. It is interpretation of Vakya to get and to arrive at the proper meaning. And it is also based on the analytical principles of Akanksha, Yogyata and Sannidhi and all that. So there is a lot more to learn from Mimamsa. Even beyond the rituals, what I would like to say is, even beyond the rituals also, there is much more in Mimamsa, and therefore people have to learn that. So with these just 2 points to supplement what you talked, Desikanji, I thank you on behalf of all the participants, and you are our own faculty. So we are always benefiting from your expertise in this field, especially Nyaya and Mimamsa. So over to Subbu to conclude this.
So all listeners, I hope you have got an insight, an introductory insight into the entire darshana of Purva Mimamsa, which will also act as a very good background now as we move into Uttara Mimamsa from the next session onwards. So now we end with the Shanti Mantra. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.